With a lore spanning the multiverse and time and space, where to begin? Well, probably makes sense to begin with what is for us the present day. Or at least what was the present day when I first wanted this book to come out, that being 2016. And even though it's 2020 now, to date the video, because of how I've then built out, like certain characters need to be certain ages at certain other specific points, and because of some references made here and there, I'm not changing that now. Book set in 2016, set in stone. This is Gift of the Mancynn, my first novel. Hello and welcome to the Ragnarök Chronicles. My name is Dominic, and if you haven't seen the introductory video, this is a channel where I just discuss the different worlds and elements within my overall series of books that I am planning to be writing, which are primarily science fiction, but will have other elements mixed in here and there, including some mythological ties. As will always be the case, or always try to be the case with these videos, I am going to be avoiding actual important spoilers for the stories themselves. And in general, this video is just going to be discussing the key elements of the plot, just the main non-spoilery beats. There will be subsequent videos looking at characters and places and specific items perhaps later on. Okay, so with Gift of the Mancynn, the first book in a set of 4, as I say, set in 2016, we are introduced to what in my head is a 15-year-old boy, but I guess I don't actually ever specify his age, other than he's in secondary school to some degree. As a 15-year-old boy called Philip Quint. Now, for his entire life, Philip has, without real explanation, been able to do and know things. Most notably, he's been able to an extent, manipulate reality around him, or his own person, but also he just has an exceptional knowledge of certain fields, such as ancient history and science. Now, as part of this, he's also never questioned these abilities, just never occurred to him to do so. He's just gone through life generally keeping them secret, but using abilities here and there where it suits him. As it stands now, though, he's coming to the end of his latest school year. He's got one week left before the summer holidays. And it's at this point that he is visited by an apparition, by an entity that common folklore should tell him is the Grim Reaper, a skeleton in a black cloak. This apparition is called Gryal, and for the moment at least, Gryal just wishes to leave him with certain messages, the general theme of which are that Philip should just trust him and his brothers and do what they say at some unspecified later date. Of course, Philip doesn't really know what to make of this, first just assumes it was some kind of dream or hallucination, but as time goes on it becomes harder and harder to deny that, as other figures also start seemingly watching him from a distance. A man dressed all in black, for instance, who would much rather that Philip align himself with him rather than the likes of Gryal. So later on you end up in a situation where Philip is being fought over by these two mysterious bodies, these forces, for missions, neither of which are ever perfectly clear, at least at this stage. Again, earlier on, during this whole experience, Philip also loses his best friend Tony. Tony goes missing. Let's say best friend, kind of only friend, given that Philip has, again, grown up, knowledge that he is different, he is special, he has these powers and knowledge. It has left him with something of an ego, which hasn't led to him being the most popular person in school. So he is kind of set up for a reality check later on in terms of how he does think of himself and other people around him. But his friend goes missing, and he ends up, through various series of events, starting to travel across the world, so from England to Venezuela, to Switzerland, to Egypt, uncovering these different alien secrets, along with some other friends, some other companions. So you've got Carrie, who is in his year group. You got Eve, who they meet in Venezuela. She's slightly younger. And then Jimmy, who is the youngest. He's about 10, and again, he was never meant to be there, but he got accidentally caught up in it rather than volunteering to help, as with the others. But together, whether they wanted to be there or not, they come to gradually realise that these extraterrestrial, or extra-dimensional, strictly speaking, influences by the likes of Gryal, it hasn't just started now. There's been things like this going on throughout human history and beyond. And right now, what they're experiencing in 2016, that is just the culmination. The plan finally coming to a head. See, with Gryal, he is the head of a group referred to as the Brethren Lords. Now, they exist outside of our kind of plane of existence, our reality. The structure of the multiverse and time is something I'm going to need to do in another video, probably the next one. They exist in a different plane, and they are part of a conflict which has been going on since before the start of our perception of time. Now, this conflict has kind of died down in the recent period, but it definitely isn't over. The tensions between the different conflicting forces and sides haven't died down, haven't gone away. But in this quiet period, the Lords have come up with a different plan. One to make use of Earth on a lower plane from their perspective, that other rival sides may not think to pay attention to. So throughout our history, the Lords have been creating these specific individuals referred to as Mancyns, these people with extraordinary abilities. And it's these people who have been influencing our progression and development until we get to the present day. And Earth is almost ready to be turned into a tool that they can use in their plan. How exactly will they use Earth? Well, we'll find that out at a later date. But as part of that, they have this final Mancyn in terms of their schedule and their plan, in this case being Philip, who is meant to be at the head of it all, kind of their representative on Earth, acting out their bidding and guiding the rest of humanity through the final stages. So that's why they've started appealing to Philip now. They're ready to activate him and prepare him for this role. And from their perspective, that should be the entirety of this story. It just so happens, though, that when you have a conflict that's literally spanning across the multiverse, there are going to be a number of other people also involved that also have their own agendas. So at the same time, we now also get introduced to this figure named Mierdi. And she has decided at this stage to start to manipulate the Lords in her own way, to play with some of them for her own ends. And because of this, before some of the Lords realise, you end up with these other objectives that they think they need to go on for their own mission, but actually for hers, and that then throws a spanner into their connected designs. So as things now start to unravel into chaos for everyone, and regardless, there are questions being asked of who is actually working for who, we're also then left with Philip, currently suffering an identity crisis as to who he actually is, whether he is a part of this role, or is apparently his destiny, what he's programmed to how to think and what to do, or whether he is his own person, and even as his own person, what would he actually prefer to do. And it's this kind of imbalance that at times may also make him just as dangerous for the companions around him as any of their enemies might be. Now, as for any kind of mythological connections, because again, this is the Ragnarök Chronicles. While not Norse, the most overt connection is that the Brethren Lords are versions of the Horsemen of the Apocalypse. There are other mythological connections throughout this book as well, but they're maybe not as obvious, so I'm curious when it comes out if people can spot any of those, oh, this is this person, or this is this thing. Also bear in mind that one character, for instance, just focus on the character, because we could also talk about objects and places and so forth, but one character could be embodying multiple mythological things. Like it could be this person from this mythology, but at the same time, also this person from this separate mythology. It's interesting. See if people maybe want to think about it if they're interested in doing that. But with all that said, that is an overview of my first book, Gift of the Mancynn, without getting into anything too massively spoilery. I guess for any details, it's potentially YA, young adult, but I haven't written it with any particular age in mind, other than obviously not too young. There is a modicum of violence in there and implied language, but yeah, anyone read it if they feel interested in it, if they're interested in kind of sci-fi adventures. As I say, coming later on, or at least at the same time with these first ones that are coming out on the channel's launch day, as it were, we'll be getting more into the specifics of how the reality in these books works and the characters and so forth. I hope you've found this interesting. Hope you'll find those future ones interesting. Either way, before I see you again, just remember to keep on telling stories. Also, just to make sure that you're aware, in the descriptions of any videos which contain them, I will be putting the spellings and definitions of any words that I have made up, just so you're clear on exactly what it is I'm saying, if you wanted to repeat them in any kind of capacity, in the comments maybe, or something like that.